everybody, check this out. Dirt, mud, more dirt, salt, mud, and dirt. I'm Tom, and what you just saw is my winter commuter bike after about a week of riding without cleaning it. And you saw it's full of dirt, salt, mud, grime, all the stuff of winter. And all that dirt and mud was the reason it was so hard for me for so long to find the perfect winter commuter bike. Here in my city, we get a lot of freeze melt cycles, so the roads are filled with salt. So much salt that I actually destroyed a beloved bike early in my winter commuting days. Missed that bike. But if you follow my channel, you know that a few years ago I actually solved that problem. I found my perfect winter bike. It was a Priority Continuum. This bike had everything I always wanted in a winter commuter. Aluminum frame, carbon belt drive, internal hub at the back, nice fenders, built for withstanding the rust that comes with winter. So about 3 winters ago I picked up this bike and I've been happily riding it for 3 years and it's been great. I put a studded tire on the front. I've kind of put a lot of junk on it over the years. This is very unlike me, but it just seems to have built up over the years. Yes, those are my Christmas lights from a couple of weeks ago and they're still there. But then a few weeks ago I got an email from David at Priority Bicycles letting me know that they had upgraded the Continuum and he wondered if I wanted to give it a try. And lo and behold, there it is. How's that for a reveal? And it didn't take much convincing to get me to drop my money on the upgrade. So here it is, the Onyx up close. Nice and clean, still sparkling new, unlike my old Priority Continuum, which, as you can see, bears all the scars of commuting. I'm going to tell you about some of the upgrades the Onyx has compared to the old Continuum, and then give you some of my impressions. First of all, the Onyx just looks way more badass than the old version of the Continuum. It's not just the paint job, although the paint job does help. I kind of love that flat black. But it's also reflective paint, so it's hard to show you on camera right now, but the whole bike is reflective. So at night, when the headlights of a car shine on it, the whole thing lights up, which as a commuter, I totally appreciate. And speaking of visibility, one nice upgrade to the Onyx is the built-in lights. So on the old Priority, I've got it loaded up with all kinds of lights, including the Christmas lights I still have on there from a few weeks ago. The Onyx has them built in, and they're attached to a hub dynamo, which means as the wheel turns, it actually powers the light, which is pretty cool. You don't even have to think about it. You can just get on there and ride, and you've always got lights going for you too. You know, I'll still use extra lights. I mean, in the winter, I feel like it's really important to be visible, but these are a nice thing. You know, I'm all about bikes that you don't have to think about, you don't have to do a lot of maintenance on, and having automatic hub dynamo lights on there is super helpful. One nice little thing about these, unlike most hub dynamos, the wheels stop turning, the light fades and shuts off. The Onyx is built in with a little capacitor, which is kind of like a little battery that charges. So when you stop at a stop sign or a traffic light, the lights stay lit up for a little while. So you know they're not going to stay lit if you're standing there for an hour, but it just keeps you a little bit more visible when you're stopped at traffic lights. There's a couple of other little design tweaks on the Onyx. I mean, the seat post is now carbon fiber, which normally I roll my eyes at carbon fiber parts on a commuter bike because I just find them unnecessary. I mean, do you really need to save a couple of ounces on a bike that you're loading up with your computer and your lunch bag to get to work anyway? But the back end on this bike is a little bit heavier than most for reasons I'll explain later, so I kind of appreciate trying to save a little bit of weight on the back end of this one. Yeah, let's talk about the drivetrain, because that's one of the most interesting parts and one of the things I like best about the Priority Continuum and the Continuum Onyx. So both bikes come with a carbon fiber belt drive instead of a chain, which I really appreciate. This is one of the things that drew me to this bike in the first place, is because it won't rust. You can't rust this chain out because it's not a chain, it's made of carbon. So it's a great in a climate like mine where you've got so much salt and grit. The carbon fiber belt has been great, although one word of warning, last winter in the midst of a terrible cold snap, it was minus 30 degrees Celsius or minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit for a couple of weeks, and I actually snapped the carbon fiber belt drive, which I was weirdly proud of. But the company was great. They sent me one that will better withstand temperatures of that cold. So if you're going with this in a super cold climate, Just make sure you've got the right belt that's fit for those really cold temperatures. Now let's talk about this rear hub. This is what's pretty interesting too. So just like the Priority, the original Priority, this uses Nuvinci technology in the back. As you can see, it's an internal hub, which keeps out the moisture, which keeps it running pretty well. So that is great. But it also doesn't use gears in the same way as you're probably used to. It doesn't use stepped gears. So in most bikes with a derailleur, you shift from one gear to the next to the next. But the hubs on these are different. There isn't a set number of gears. It kind of loosens and tightens using tension. So as you tighten it up on the pistol grip handlebar, you tighten and loosen, and it tightens and loosens as you pedal too. So you almost have like an infinite number of gears when there aren't gears at all. So it's really interesting. Also, this little guy in the handlebar, when you twist, it makes a little hill, so you can tell if you're pedaling light or pedaling hard. So it's kind of nifty technology. I mean, the whole drivetrain is super quiet, super smooth, super efficient that way too. And without a derailleur and all of the gear, it doesn't rust out either. So on the old one, I like this, and the new one, I appreciate that it's still there too. Now, one of the things I didn't like about the old Continuum was that the range on that hub was pretty narrow. So, you know, sometimes I felt like I couldn't get fast enough, and sometimes when I was going up a hill, I could have used a higher gear too. So they've expanded the range on the new ones, so there's a wider range of gearing or pedaling. So I like that. It's still not perfect. I would still like a wider range, but you know, this is a commuter bike in the winter, so things are slow anyway. So this for me is not a make or break it. I still like the technology. You know, it's getting me through the winter just fine. One other note of caution is on my old bike, during those really cold snaps below minus 30 degrees Celsius, and I actually froze the gearing up a couple of times where it wouldn't shift at all. Once I got moving and pedaled, I think the friction must have warmed things up and loosened it, and then it would shift. And when I talked to the company about it, they said this is a maintenance thing. If you need to keep on top of it a little bit to keep it running properly in those cold temperatures. But just something to be aware of if you are riding through those deathly cold temperatures like I do sometimes. You've got to keep up on the maintenance a little bit. So those are the improvements on the bike. So what are my impressions? Well, I like the improvements. You know, I enjoyed the Continuum, and the Onyx is a little bit better. I like it a little bit better than the old bike. I like the drivetrain. This is a nice thing that I appreciate. It's great in winter. It's totally withstood the rust, and I expect the new one to be even better at that. You know, I'm gonna do a few improvements to it to really winterize it. I'm gonna put a studded tire on the front. I don't feel like I need two studded tires in my climate, so just one on the front. I'm gonna put a rack on the back, so it's a true commuter bike. I'm probably not gonna go with the Christmas lights again, because you know, there's only so much junk you can add to your bike. And you know, one of my preferences is this style of frame on commuter bikes like this is not my favorite. I said this last time with, you know, that commuter frame it's sort of a hybrid, and I find it's not all that comfortable nor all that fast and aggressive. It's kind of in the middle, and I think some people like that. You know, it's not my personal favorite, so that's probably the thing I like least about the bike. But you know, it's getting me through the winter fine, and you know, that's maybe a bit of a quibble. One other thing I quite like about this is the price. You know, this bike is pretty reasonably priced. It's about a little over $1,000, and for a good commuter bike, that's a good price. And part of the reason for that is that Priority is an online seller, which comes with advantages and disadvantages, as most of you probably know. Not buying a bike through a bike shop comes with some risk. You need to be able to deal with that yourself. So, you know, I had to put this bike together myself, and philosophically or maybe existentially, it's hard for me to buy a bike without supporting a bike shop. Bike shops are so important to, you know, the cycling culture of a city that it's important to me to support them. I do support our bike shops in many other ways. Just something to be aware of. So for the money, the Continuum held up very well for the 3 winters. You know, I'm pretty hard on bikes in the wintertime, and this one held up very well. So I'm really looking forward to putting this one through all of its paces. It's been great so far. I really enjoy it. For me, it's a good winter bike. If you have the same kind of climate as me, where rust is a real concern, where you don't have a huge amount of snow, but you do have ice and bits of snow and muck and grit, that kind of thing, give it a thought. There are lots of good winter bikes out there as well. This is the one that seems to be working for me. I hope that helps you make decisions about your winter bike life. Remember, the best bike for winter is the one you've got. As long as you're riding it, that's the important part. Anytime you ride in winter, well, it's better than driving a car. It just makes your life better. Anyway, I hope that video helps you and your winter bike life. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.